clock fixed.
You're right. Then we should go. Good evening. Welcome to our Committee of the Whole for Monday, December 12th. I'd like to go ahead and call to order our meeting. First up on our agenda is items from council office. A resolution celebrating the achievements of the Gahanna Lincoln football team during the 2022 season. Who's speaking on this?
I guess I am. I sent the text if anybody has any ideas or additions or corrections. I'd be happy to we could look at that if anybody has any questions. A lot of it I just gained from the internet. I looked up the records and who they'd played and stuff like that, so. I've had a couple people look at it. Anybody have any questions? Or?
I don't have any questions. I thought it was really nice.
Okay.
Anybody else?
All right.
All right, thank you. Item C, items from the Department of Administrative Services.
Sorry, good evening. I have before you today two actions. The first action is the salary ordinance for the personnel of the city of Gahanna. This is the proposed 2023 salary ordinance. My report outlines the changes in the ordinance from last year to this year. It includes the positions that are in the proposed 2023 budget, as well as reorganizing the table so it flows a little easier. And then increasing pay rates for seasonal, variable, and temporary employees, and then provides how the STEP program works, and then the budgeted 3.25% increase for employees outside the STEP program. We are respectfully requesting emergency and waiver so this can take effect on January 1st of 2023 for the unclassified personnel.
Thank you. Any discussions? Seeing none? Your next item? Oh, I'm so sorry. For the record, Miranda, I apologize. So it'll be on the agenda for next meeting with emergency and a waiver. Okay, thank you.
And the next action item is for the 2023 benefits ordinance. This is the companion ordinance for the unclassified personnel. So modifications to this ordinance include some changes in definitions, changing the probationary period from 6 months to 1 year for new hires, and is staying at 6 months for promotions or transfers. Clarification in different definition sections. An increase in the service credit by $50 per category. It follows suit with our counterparts in the unions. The payment of the annual service credit can go to an employees' HSA should they choose. Clarification on vacation language, cash out payment of vacation leave up to 40 hours, which is consistent with the union counterparts as well. Removal of cash payment for waiving insurance. To align with the bargaining units under sick and injury leave, the payout of sick leave up to 1,200 hours for the first 1,200 hours at 50%, which is a reduction from 60, so a 10% reduction. Removal of the payment of sick leave upon resignation. And then in the part-time schedule addition, we added the holidays for part-time employees that the full-time employees get as well to make it more equitable. This is also being requested on emergency and waiver to begin in January 1st of 2023. And then all the funding for these changes is included in the 2023 budget requests.
Thank you, Miranda. Any questions? Okay, I got distracted a little bit by my computer. Both of these items are requesting a waiver and emergency. Colleagues on council, do you want this on consent or regular agenda? Consent? Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Miranda, thank you. All right, item D, items from the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Good evening. I have one thing for you this evening. By code, it is the responsibility of the Landscape Board to review the comprehensive landscape plan every 3 years. The recommended changes that you see are ultimately, for the majority of them, are minor edits. There are a couple edits that do have some substance. In Section 5, letter B, the Tree City USA benefits was updated to mirror the language that's provided by Tree City USA. Also in Section 6B, invasive species list, this was updated to reference the Ohio Department of Agriculture rather than the Ohio Invasive Council. With that, we are respectfully requesting a resolution to adopt these changes.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, is consent, no second reading, or I'm sorry, second reading, but doesn't need to come back to committee, but consent.
Does it need a second reading for resolution?
Oh, it's a resolution. I apologize. You're right. It doesn't. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Items from the Department of Public Service.
Mr. President, we just have a slight change. This is not Rob James who will be presenting this. Our interim director of public service is actually at home ill, so Joanne Burry, Director Burry, will be presenting this.
Thank you.
That's on. Yep. So this is the annual Franklin County Public Health contract for providing various services as outlined in Appendix A of the contract. It's roughly costing about $9.60 per capita, about $343,000, 2% increase over last year. Happy to take any questions you might have. It is appropriated in the 2023 appropriations.
Okay. Any questions on 84, 2022?
Regular and routine.
Okay, so no need to come back, consent agenda? All right, thank you. Item F, items from the Department of Engineering.
That would be me. Director Comlank unfortunately is not able to be here this evening due to an emergency, but I'm going to hopefully tag team if I need help with our city attorney. Both of these matters should be straightforward. Action item number one, the first ordinance that you just referenced, is for the acceptance of a sidewalk easement. This is related to the ADB Safegate project located at the corner of Science Boulevard and Tech Center Drive. By code, we require sidewalks to be installed. However, we need an easement in order to create the public access along that roadway. So this is respectfully requesting an ordinance to accept the easement along Science Boulevard.
Thank you. Any questions about this ordinance? No need to come back, consent agenda on this ordinance? Good. Excellent.
Rolling along. The second item is a request for a resolution of necessity. As you know, we are doing some work on the Taylor Station Road, Claycraft Road intersection, and that also includes work on the water line there. We need to get an expansion of the existing easement in order to facilitate improvements with regard to the water line and the booster station that is within the project limits. So in order to do that, we need a resolution of necessity to pursue and obtain that easement.
Understood. Any questions? All right. Consent agenda is okay?
Ray just told me I got an engineering degree for how I...
An honorary one, right?
I don't want one.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Item G, items from the Department of Finance. We get to hear from Ms. Joanna again.
Couple items for you tonight. The first one is a request for supplemental appropriations. Two items, we received funds from the state into our law enforcement trust fund for cases from 2019 and 2020. These were unanticipated, and there's a required disbursement that's required to Franklin County Prosecutor's Office. So requesting a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $8,500 for state law enforcement trust funds contract services. The second item is related to the police pension fund. We make transfers from the public safety fund over to police pension to cover the portion that isn't covered by real estate taxes. In 2022, real estate taxes came in just a little bit lower than anticipated, and we also had a supplemental for the contract for the FOP. So requesting a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $56,000 for the public safety fund transfers out.
Okay, I'm trying to catch up. So on the first one, you were asking for a waiver of second reading. Do I have any questions or comments for that? Okay for the second, and then be on consent? All right, and then you went through the second ordinance, right?
No, those were all part of the first request, and waiver on both of those, so we can get them in place before 2022 appropriations lapse.
Mr. Snesser?
So may or maybe not a question about this particular ordinance, but I don't think it was that long ago the state was debating, I guess, increasing the employer share to the police and fire pension fund. Is any of this related to that?
No, this is solely related to the negotiated contract.
Okay.
And when their wages went up, so did pension cost. And then, like I said, property tax came in just a little under what was anticipated. So nothing related to that. And I believe that is still floating around in the State House somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Consent agenda is okay, right?
Yeah, I mean, we got to do it.
Okay, anything else?
So the next couple items are all related to the amended Science One contracts and the Tech Center Drive extension and the water line improvement. So we had everything kind of in place for the first round of agreements. So now that they've been amended, we need to shift appropriations a little bit. So the first action item is to reduce appropriations for the capital improvement fund. So those were increased, planning on receiving state infrastructure bank loan proceeds. So now that we will not be issuing the state infrastructure bank loan, we need to go ahead and reduce those appropriations. So requesting a reduction for the capital improvement fund in appropriations of $1,164,900. Also requesting waiver on this one, also so we can get it in place before the appropriations lapse.
Thank you. Any questions about these two?
So you don't need emergency, though, just waivers enough?
Yeah, so supplemental appropriations don't have the 30-day wait.
Okay,
They
all
just,
right.
they just require the 2 readings.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Okay, and consent agenda is okay for both of these? Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, committee of the whole is adjourned.
Well, got two more for you.
What?
Still all, yeah, still all related to Science
Dream
One,
on.
but still moving,
Dream on.
still requiring to move some money around and do some different things, so brought them forward as separate action items. So the third one is actually transfers of appropriations. So within the 4320 fund, that was a fund that was created for the security deposit to repay the loan. So we had appropriated for principal retirement, but now we're going to be using the funds to reimburse for the actual construction of Tech Center Drive and the water line. So this is moving it from principal retirement to capital improvement, and also renaming the fund the Tech Center Security Deposit Fund, since we will no longer be using it for the loan payment. And then along those same lines, in the Central Park TIF and in the Water Capital Fund, the original plan was to spend those directly from there for the capital improvements, but instead those will be transferred to the Tech Center Security Deposit Fund, which will be used to reimburse the developer for a portion of the construction. So asking the transfer within those funds from capital improvements to transfers out, so we can get the money into the new fund for the developer reimbursement. And those are just a resolution, since we're just transferring appropriations.
Any questions on that?
Is the developer paying any portion of the road construction?
So they do have a portion of it, and somewhere so depending on what the final cost is going to be, which I believe it was up to 1.5 million, but I believe it might be coming in a little bit lower than that. So they will, of that 1.5 million, it looks like they will get about 692,000 back. So their portion is the remainder
Okay.
of whatever that construction cost is.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Consent agenda, it's okay? All right.
And then last one is once those funds are transferred into the Tech Center Security Deposit Fund, then we need appropriations so we could actually pay those funds back to the developer. So supplemental appropriation for the TIF money that's being transferred over, the water capital money that's being transferred over, and the two grant revenue sources that should be coming in along with this project. So making sure that we have those funds appropriated and ready to pay the developer back once we get the grant funds and everything moved around. Also requesting waiver so we can get it in place before the end of 2022.
Any questions on this ordinance?
No, this is all just so
Yeah.
that we get a clean audit next year.
Yep.
It's a long laundry list of end-of-the-year items, so are we okay with the consent agenda? Okay. Good. Joanne, thank you.
Welcome.
Now do I have a motion for adjournment?
Wow, 16 minutes, man. Last Finance Committee for 2022, so Finance Committee for December 12th, 2022. We just have one discussion item on the agenda. This is to go over the 2023 fiscal year appropriations. Basically, just some housekeeping items before we put this on for vote 1 week from today.